Hello and welcome to the latest Glasgow Rangers Nation podcast live with me, your host Owen. I'm joined tonight by my usual co-host Victoria, all the way from Canada, but also we have another fantastic guest tonight, a very special guest also in Canada. So it's Canada 2, the UK 1 tonight. I'm joined by Gary, who is the president of NARSA. Start with Victoria. Victoria, how are you today? How's life treating you?
I'm good. I'm like slowly recovering from the game that we all put ourselves through the other day, but we're doing okay now. It just started raining here, so hopefully that stops. But I'm super excited for this podcast because I'm going to NARSA, so it's an honor to have Gary on today. How are you doing on yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, all good here. Yeah, still recovering from yesterday, obviously. Gary, how are you doing? How's your day been, and how's Calgary?
Doing really well. Thanks, Owen. Thanks to Owen and Victoria for having me on. Yeah, doing well. It's midday, just after midday here, so I'm taking a wee sneaky lunch to sit and chat with you guys. But yeah, so far so good. We actually, Victoria, I guess the good weather that you folks had in Toronto over the last week or so has made its way over here, because we're in the 20 plus 20s for the entire week this week. So
yeah, I saw that. You're so lucky. I'm going to have to come over there. Just have your door open. I'm going to come and stay with you.
Well, there's a code on the door. I'll just give you the code.
Perfect.
Okay, and we've got a few people joining us in the live chat. Our good buddy Nicholas is there. Says good evening from everyone from the South Wales Loyal. Some person apparently that Victoria knows, I think, here. Hello from sunny Orlando, Florida. Victoria, do you know that person?
I do. That is my wonderful father, Hugh. He's down there keeping his feet up in the sunshine. He got burnt and looks like a lobster right now. So he's going to have to apply that aloe so he's not all gross looking for NARSA.
We've also got Gallant Pioneer, our good buddy in the It says evening bears, Hugh as well. Nicholas is saying hello to Victoria. Aldo is also in the live chat saying good evening team. Another one of our fantastic mods. Got loads of people in here. Scott asking what it's not NASA, Scott, it's NARSA. I don't think Gary's the president of NASA.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Almost.
On the plan. It's on the plan. We've also got Alexander joining us. We've got DMAC as well joining us. Evening All-Star. Still can't put that Carla miss out of his head. Scott 05, NARSA mate. Good evening, troops from Malky, and Only For Home Nation says, keep up the great work, lads. Okay, so let's get started. So, Gary, you obviously in Canada. Tell us a little bit about, obviously, what you do with NARSA, what you do as the president of NARSA, and also a little bit of reflection on Rangers season so far, Gary.
Oh, right. I'll start with the positive stuff, with the NARSA stuff, and then maybe I'll end on a bit of a downer with the Rangers season. Yeah, I've been part of NARSA now since 2012, so just about 11, coming up for 11 years. My first interaction with NARSA was actually 2008 when we hosted the convention here in Calgary, and I hadn't really heard of NARSA before the kind of planning started. So 2006, 2007, and then got a chance to join the executive in 2012, as I say, and basically just working through support of the membership in North America here. One of the big things that was really key for us, the two major things that we do is we get the Rangers TV feed. It wasn't always Rangers TV, but it's now Rangers TV, the Rangers TV feed over for our member clubs, and organise and orchestrate all the payments and all the support that has to happen for that. And then the second part is, as Victoria was talking about earlier, there is the annual convention that we host as well. So my role specifically is just to support everyone on the executive, support the membership, answer any questions that come along, negotiate, liaise with Rangers TV, negotiate, liaise with the host hotels, the host clubs for each of the conventions. It's a kind of 2-year rolling process that we have on the conventions. So we kind of work on that proviso, deal with everybody that we have to deal with to get the conventions to be a success. So quite admin heavy work in the background. Not a lot of it super sexy, to be very honest, but important work that typically comes quite well to fruition when we get to getting the season organised in terms of our Rangers TV coverage, and also for the execution of the conventions as well. As far as Rangers season goes, we had high hopes after Seville. We got off to a fairly decent start with the Champions League qualification, and everything looked bright, but we were kind of papering over the cracks that I think had long since been there in terms of the personnel that we have in the team. And Gio, it didn't work out for him. It was becoming kind of dejecting and a wee bit embarrassing towards the end of his tenure. And Michael Beale has done relatively well since he got off to a great start, and things haven't been quite so great this past wee while. So overall, with 5 games to go and 0 to play for now, that's disappointing. Quite frankly, selfishly, that makes my job. As the president, trying to entice people to come to the conventions, to come and experience the North American Rangers supporters experience and the like. But at the same time, I'm a fan just the exact same as everyone else, and it hurts, and it's boring, and it's annoying, and it's angering as well. It's not been a cool season at all.
No, of course, I definitely agree with you there. It's definitely been a difficult season. I would personally say, like, NARSA myself, I always look forward to people getting together. And I think no matter what happens in the past, we always look forward to the future. And we talk about things that we liked, things that we didn't like. We have a couple of drinks, we have a couple of parties, as we're going to talk about a little bit later. But one question I have for you, Gary, is can you tell us a little bit about how NARSA actually got started?
Oh yeah, this is a bit of a history lesson. It was started back in the early 90s by a group of folks, primarily spearheaded by a fellow called Tom Plunkett, depends on who you speak to, how you pronounce his name, and David Murray as well from the Bramalea Club, and they got together, and I believe it was in Michigan, and had this idea of an amalgam. So imagine back in the 90s when technology was nothing like it is today, and so there were people getting around radios and trying to hear that. There was videotapes being sent from back home over a couple of weeks after a game finished, and then people would get together in a place and kind of watch a TV and things like that. So we didn't have then the luxuries that we have now. Email, instant message communication, text messages, and things like that was all just non-existent, quite honestly. So Tam Davey and a bunch of others got together and came up with this idea and said, what, this is something that we want to do. They got help and support from Rangers Football Club at the time to put something formal together in terms of an actual bona fide proper affiliated association, and NARSA was essentially born. Had a convention. I believe there was a convention the year before NARSA was formally formed. And then ever since then, the membership has kind of grown and then kind of depleted a wee bit and grown. And there's clubs that have come and gone as geographic nuances have taken place. And some clubs haven't survived that. And then, of course, COVID came up as well and kind of seen the end of some clubs as well. And then we're in a situation now where we still have the NARSA constitution. We are bound by our NARSA constitution. And that is our Bible, basically, that we work from. We typically get a couple of wee tweaks now and again. There's a couple of tweaks again, and for the convention, for the constitution, this year. And we basically just live to support the membership, to promote the harmony of Rangers Football Club across on this continent, and just try and do everything that we can to support the membership and at least maintaining, ideally growing the name of Rangers as we go forward.
That's great. That's awesome.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? That obviously, it does show what a worldwide appeal Rangers have as a team. Our fan base is worldwide. We are one of the biggest clubs in the world football, and looking obviously at NARSA, what made you want to get involved with NARSA, and then what motivated you to become the actual president of NARSA, Gary?
So what made this is a funny story. I've never been asked that one before. What made me get involved originally was I had quite a good bond with Bobby Smith, who was the former NARSA president and the long-time treasurer of NARSA, and that friendship had started in the planning for up to an execution of the 2008 convention. And we kept in touch. Typically, we would be late with our checks or something, or the checks would bounce or something like that, for the TV feed, and Bobby would phone and we'd have a chat and he'd say, like, the check has bounced again. And I'd go onto our treasurer here in Calgary saying, like, what happened? And then we just kept in touch. And then it coming up to the 2012 convention, he said, look, the VP position is open. If you would fancy that, if you would be interested in that. And I said, you know what, I've got enough on here in Calgary. I've got enough on in my life, and I had a young kid at the time and things like that. And he basically never took no for an answer, quite honestly. Oh, and he's just like, yeah, no, but this position's still open. I says maybe another time that would be kind of cool. And then he phoned, and he just it was kind of like, I'm not asking, I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. So I got nominated, I got seconded, I got voted in via acclamation at the AGM. I didn't actually attend that. I was in absentia as well because it was in the Bahamas, and I couldn't make it. I couldn't afford to go to that convention, quite honestly. So then I got involved there. So the VP to the president was essentially just a natural succession or progression of the roles. But even then, it's not a right. You don't have to if you don't want to. So in that time between 2015, I just started to figure out the inner workings and just kind of get my bearings and get my feet under me in terms of what we're trying to do and where I could maybe add some value going forward in terms of structure, in terms of communication, in terms of, just kind of putting my own personality on the role as well. So then it came up to 2014, decided to go for the president job. I think it was uncontested at the time. So I got a chance to move into the role, and then it feels like I've been in the role ever since. It's a 2-year tenure. I did it from 2014 to 2016, and then became past president from 2016 to 2018, and just assumed that was me done. And I put in 6 years, and I was quite happy with my tenure. There was a little bit of personality challenges or personality differences or differences of opinion, and we get, what Rangers fans are like. So we got ourselves a little bit animated at times. So much so that I decided to rerun again for the president role in 2018 to see if I could continue the journey that we had started, and was fortunate enough to win that election. And it was an election in 2018, and believe it or not, I've actually been the president ever since. The Constitution allows for the continuity of service if no one else runs, and that's kind of what's happened since then. COVID took care of a lot of that sort of stuff, so didn't really know a lot about it, kind of got forced into it, and have ended up where I have ended up. I don't know that there was a lot of strategy and intention behind a lot of it, maybe save for 2018 onwards.
So, question in the live chat for you here, Gary. So, from a guy called DMAC, one of our subscribers, says, question for Gary. Could you ever see yourself returning to Scotland permanently? Must be tough not getting to games.
Definitely tough not getting to games. Moving to Scotland permanently, I grew up in Paisley, and every time I go back to Paisley, I realise that it's a nice place to be from. But my life, I loved it there. By the way, I had a great. I didn't have a travel bug or the desire to leave Scotland or anything like that. I just fell in love with Calgary at a very young age and decided to move over. So both of my parents now are unfortunately gone, and those were the main reason for going back to visit back home. So I don't know when I'm going to be back. So short answer to that is I can't see myself moving back. When I do go back, it typically coincides with a game or two, so that I get the opportunity to go. And do you know the weirdest thing is that, see, when you go to a live game after watching it on the TV for so long, it's kind of difficult to do that because you don't have the benefit of the commentary, whether you like Tom Miller or you don't. It doesn't matter. I like him. But we get, you don't get the replays. You're like, well, what happened? You don't know where to look and things like that. So it is tough not getting to the games. And I have to say, I do miss that part. And that was one of the big things I was actually stressing out about when I immigrated. Was how is this going to be? Notwithstanding we're 7 hours behind here, so some of the games at midday or 5 a.m. for us, and it's even worse on the West Coast where it's an hour earlier. But I don't see myself going back. And yes, it's kind of tough missing the games, I have to say.
And I think Aldo's got the wrong kind of president. I think he's got the wrong president here. He says, "Do you get your own plane being president?"
Well, that's one of the reasons that I ran again, because we didn't have a NARSA private jet at the time. So I'm working on trying to get some sponsorship and marketing support so that we can get that, because travel and economy on these flights to go to the conventions, it just feels beneath me. It really does.
I definitely agree with you there. Being a flight attendant, economy is not the way to go. And you work so hard, Gary, so you do deserve to, have your own plane, first class, whatever it's going to be. So like we were talking about the election and becoming part of NARSA, how would one become part of NARSA if they were interested in truly getting involved within a little situation that you guys have going on there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I think I would recommend for anyone would be to visit our website. Our website is narsa.ca, and then everything you need is there. There's an area that I think it says about us or something like that. Actually, you know what? I have the website open. And there's a part there that's
prepared.
About, yeah, it says about, and then we have the executive, we have history, contact us, constitution. And I would encourage people to look at the constitution. And that details each of the roles that we have on the executive and what the roles and responsibilities of each of the roles are. And then if you're interested in that, you could certainly get in touch with me, and I could talk and walk you through, what it says on the constitution, and then kind of how it works in terms of the practical realities of how we manage and govern ourselves. And then you need to be a member, fully paid up, and good standing member of a NARSA club. And then you would have to have a nomination from a NARSA club. Typically, people get nominations from their own club, and then a second from another NARSA club in good standing. And then you would then be on the list. We have a 2-month cutoff time, which was April 17th. And if you happen to be the only candidate, then you would then be voted in via acclamation. So we do have quite a few people who have been voted in via acclamation for this year. There's a couple of open positions that we have right now, and one position that's going to be open for election as well. So a wee bit of admin to it, but if you're in the community, people know you in the community, and getting the nomination in second is usually relatively the simple part. And then if you're competing with other people, have a situation of 3 people in one position, that becomes quite interesting.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like being in that sort of situation when you have more than one person that really wants the job, and then there's the difficulty of figuring out, like, okay, which one am I going to go for?
Yeah, so that's where we've got a wee bit of a job description written on the constitution there, so that people can, essentially just look and say, is that me? Some people just want to be involved, just want to serve, just want to help, and I'll do whatever is needed to be done. Other people, my ask that I do on the weekly podcast that we have from NARSA is, it's better if you have skills in that area. If you have genuine skills in that area, if you're a marketing and sponsorship person, if you're a communications person, if you're a finance person or something like that, it just becomes easier. It becomes less of a burden for you to do that. But the first and main thing is, a love for Rangers and a desire to help continue to grow the NARSA brand and community in North America would be the 2 major facets.
Very good.
So there was a question in the live chat. I've lost it now. Saying from one of the guys from Qualifying again, asking how many members have you currently? Here we go. So Scott05 says, how many members are there in NARSA?
So that's not already been asked there, Scott. It's short answer is we don't know. And then the reason we don't know, there's a wee bit of historical background to that. We do know the number of clubs that we have. We have over 30 active clubs and some dormant clubs right now who have maintained their NARSA membership, and they just don't have enough members to continue to be a bona fide club going forward. But in terms of the actual membership numbers, we don't know. And I believe part of that, Gary's theory, is that part of that is that back in the day, the number of members of a club you had was, absolutely linked to what you would be charged for a game. So if you say to NARSA, we have 150 members, then you would be charged probably, $1,500 per game or something like that. And so it then became the incentive to truly divulge your numbers to the NARSA executive. Again, just my opinion, the incentive wasn't there, because every single person who's organizing a club, I'm the president of the Calgary club as well, knows that your membership numbers doesn't reflect the people who come to the game. In Calgary, we've got like 32, 33 members, and we have 10 to 12 hardcore people that show up. And then when the games get bigger and the weather gets nicer, we maybe get another few. There's never a time when everyone is there, So yeah, a long way to explain that that's one of the things that we'll concentrate on with the NARSA executive going forward here, is to try and get an accurate number. Because even when we're dealing with a club or we're dealing with potential sponsors, we don't have the ability to be able to say, we have an amalgam membership of 1,500 Rangers fans, so you're immediately marketing to 1,500 people. We just don't have that yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know. So obviously, going to obviously NARSA, you mentioned obviously the conventions you've had in Calgary. I've seen Victoria's photos from Las Vegas, for example. Obviously, you'd have the convention in different places in North America every year. How do you pick the city that actually hosts? Is it a competition, or is it people apply? How is it actually decided?
Yeah, it's a competition. Essentially, what we do at the annual general meeting this year, we'll be opening things up for nominations for 2025 and possibly even 26. We would entertain having that conversation, but it's decided at the AGM. Certain clubs, it used to be back in the day, it was quite a sought after thing where people would actually bid, and there would be a vote between the member clubs as to who we would decide or where we would decide to go. Of late, it's not quite been like that. I think because we've essentially gone everywhere and people have had that opportunity to host, they realize that it's a bit of a nightmare to host a convention.
Honestly. A big job.
And then they're kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. So for example, last year in New York City, the Big Apple Bears in New York had bid for 2024, and they were successful. They were the only club that bid for it anyway. So this time, as I mentioned earlier, it's a 2-year cycle. So this time we would be asking for open nominations as we go forward. I think it's probably something that we're going to look at in terms of the actual process of doing it, because in my experience, someone saying they want to do it and then their ability to be able to actually do it and do it well as they want and as well as NARSA would like as well, is sometimes different. Some people have the best of intentions and a good heart, but the organisation isn't quite there on the ground, which then exponentially comes back to NARSA for us to kind of pick up the slack a wee bit. So I think the selection process, I would like to be something along the lines of, and it doesn't say this in the Constitution, but if someone puts their hand up and says we would like to host, that gets you on a list, that gets you to the first stage, and then we sit down and say, can you organise excursions? What type of committee do you have? What type of contacts in the area do you have? How active are your members and things like that? Because it can become a real burden really quickly if you don't have that infrastructure in the back end.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. It's quite a big job to put on a convention like this, especially with such high expectations of even myself. Like yearly, I get excited about going to the convention. You never know what it's going to turn out like, but it always turns out fantastic. So that's something that I personally always look forward to, and think that you guys, as well as the host club, does such an amazing job putting something like this together, because I feel like it goes unseen about how much work goes on behind the scenes, because we as like guests or fans just see the front stage show, but we don't see everything that goes on behind. So it's kind of nice to understand what happens there, especially when it comes down to guests, because obviously fans and guests of NARSA always look forward to speaking to whoever you have put forward there. Obviously this year we have Mark Haley, who I believe has been there before. We love Mark. Willie Henderson, Andy Gray, and of course Gordon Smith, who you just announced recently. So what kind of opportunities will you have at NARSA for fans to interact with these Rangers legends?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Actually, I was talking about this with the hotel earlier today, believe it or not, Victoria, and we it's typically quite unstructured. What we do, we have them at the events. We'll have them on the stage for the Q&A. Sometimes we do a Q&A both Thursday and Friday. Sometimes it's maybe just Thursday. Sometimes it's maybe just Friday. Depends on what the entertainment itinerary looks like. But there's basically, this is going to be a smaller convention this year. So, the VIPs to guests is going to be a wee bit less. So you're not going to be competing with quite as many people. But the conversation I was having with the hotel earlier today is what we're going to do is we're going to put on a blue room of some description, a bar during the day, where if you just want a pint before night time, if you just want a pint or a drink of some description before you head out for the day, if you're going to the excursions or if you're not, there will be an area where friends will be, where you can go and have that organised. And now that we have a room organised for that at the hotel, what we're going to do from an NARSA executive perspective is we're going to put together a bit of an itinerary. And the DJ has confirmed that he would be able to. He's willing to come down and spend some time with us. Going to see about getting some AV equipment, maybe getting some games, some older games, put through there, and then probably having a predefined time to say, maybe on one of the days Mark Haitley and Willie Henderson will be there. On the next day, Gordon Smith and Andy Gray will be there, or vice versa, or mix it up. And it's a time for them just to have a drink or two. And the setting will just be smaller. It will be more intimate, and we'll have that opportunity to have a bit of a signing session, or nothing too formal, but just a time where we know where they're going to be, and then you just get an opportunity to just get a bit of maybe one-on-one time or smaller groups.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Yeah, I feel like when you go to conventions like Las Vegas, that was absolutely massive. So you always get a chance to maybe get a picture with your favorite player or someone that's involved in Rangers. But it sounds like this convention, you might actually have to spend some one-on-one time and ask maybe that question that you've been dying to ask Mark Haitley, for example, and feel like you're getting a more personal experience, which is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guests, they sound fantastic guests. I mean, Mark Haitley was certainly one of my heroes. I remember Mark playing for Rangers, and it's been an absolute superstar for us. How about in terms of all these fantastic guests you get, Gary? How do you actually pick them? How do you actually get them to come?
So what we did, one of the first changes I made, it was quite a closed shop, as far as I could understand it before I got involved with NARSA, and that there wasn't at the time a lot of incentive for host clubs, or a lot of gifts or benefits of being a host club. So one of the first things that I put in place was we would ask the host club, who's your favorite players, like who alive, obviously, that you would like us to invite, because no one's off the table. That there are some elite folks that are very difficult to get because they are they do this professionally, and it would be somewhat cost prohibitive sometimes. But so we asked the host club, because what you're really trying to get, and I think Victoria was alluding to this a wee bit earlier, is you don't know what you're going to get because it's a different location. And even if it's in the same city that you've maybe visited before, it's a different committee. It's just a different vibe, a different feel, different guests and things like that. So we asked the host club, what's your wish list? And then, give us it kind of like the top 3 or 5. And then we have our own personal favorites as well. And some people, they maybe couldn't make it the year before, or kind of, if I could say, somewhat promised to be on the list for next time, so maybe that would help make up the list. And then, quite honestly, when I get on the phone, I say, I don't have this person's number, can you give me this person's number? And then I'll start with a text, and I'll say, this is Gary Gillan from NARSA here, would you be willing to have a chat about this? And then shortly afterwards, I'm talking to some genuine heroes, and my heart is bouncing out my chest. I'm trying to be all professional and cool to say, yes, would you like to come along? And it's quite organic in the background.
So that sounds amazing. I actually know getting to talk to them is absolutely fantastic. Is there any of the guests that you've actually spoken to on the phone where you've just thought, I cannot believe I am actually speaking to this person?
Yes, actually every one of them. Sometimes I forget. Like, being honest, the novelty has it's not worn off, but it's kind of normalized a wee bit now. So I'm not at the point where I'm hyperventilating when I'm speaking to these folks. But anytime I'm talking to any of the guests, even the more regular ones that you could say, there's a friendship there, I'm still kind of pinching myself a wee bit, thinking this is incredible. So some of the ones that I didn't manage to get over during my tenure, but met at the convention, like Walter Smith. When I had the opportunity to talk to Walter Smith, that was just utterly unbelievable, and he's just chatting away as if we've been pals forever, and I'm taking screen captures of the phone call, and my heart's pounding out my chest and things like that, and the same like Graham Souness and things like that. We've been talking to Graham for quite a wee while to try and see if we can make something happen and then get ourselves organised. But all of them. There's no one that's any more or less exciting, because they've all got. I mean, these are genuine, bona fide, absolute legends that we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just I like getting to talk to someone like Walter Smith, late great. I mean, God rest his soul, and even Graham Souness as well. I mean, that would be just incredible. I'd be probably like, just.
It's difficult not to. I tell you one thing. See, just before the pandemic, a wee side story. Graham was coming over. It was 2020. We were hosting the convention, and he says, "Right, I'm in." At the time, before we had a travel partner, I would be collecting these folks' passports. I would be booking the flights. I would be doing a bunch of stuff like that. We're a wee bit more organised in that now. And so then, I was driving. I was teaching a class in the local university this day. I teach project management, leadership, management, communication, stuff like that. And I was driving to the university, and I was talking to my dad on the phone. And there's not very many people in my life that would interrupt my dad. My dad was my hero. My dad was my best pal. And then I'm driving, and then I say, Graham Souness is calling. And he says, oh, go get it. So I hang up, and then I speak to Graham, and he's like, my wife's a wee bit concerned about this coronavirus. That's what we used to call it back in the day, you remember. And so we have a chat about it. Then I go into my class, and I'm teaching my class. There's like 30 students in the class. And then he phones back again. And I'm like, folks, this is a very, very important call. I do apologize, but I have to take this. This is this potential emergency situation. And then I go out into the hallway, and I'm like, hi, Graham. Hi, great to hear from you again. How's everything going? And that was the day where he was like, can we just put a pause on this? Because this seems to be gathering some momentum. So I spoke to him twice within the space of about an hour. And I just ditched all these students completely, and I was like, I don't care what you want to learn for the weekend. I am going to go and speak to Mr. Souness himself.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing to get to speak to the legend that is Graham Souness.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. Sorry about the disappearing act there that I just pulled. I don't know if you guys know, but we're actually getting really bad weather here in Hamilton, so my internet just whoosh.
Oh, no.
First time that's ever happened here.
Whoops.
Anyway, so we have some obviously great excursions and stuff going to be happening at NARSA. We have the beer tour, we have the golf event, we also have the football game that you guys do. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how people would perhaps get involved or buy tickets to it or something?
Yeah, so everything, again, going to sound kind of lazy here, everything is on narsa.ca. And at the very front of the homepage, if you just click on the link there, that will take you to where you can get all the information you need to be able to book your tickets. Most of the excursions, the way things work, and a lot of people don't know this, the way things work, NARSA's involved with, we get the hotel organised, we get all the contracts, we do all the liaison with Rangers, we do all the liaison with the VIPs. The host club are responsible for the excursions, and that's where they get a chance to kind of stamp their personality on it. So we typically have the Davy Cooper Memorial Golf Tournament on the Friday, and then this year the Absent Friends football match is going to be on the Saturday afternoon. There's also a brewery tour they've got to Amsterdam in the city that is, I think it's coming over the same time as the football, so you pick either one or the other. But yeah, all the details are there. There are actually now 2 different prices that you can have for each of these, because there's a lot of local representation that are coming. Typically, everyone's flying in from elsewhere, so you get the transportation to and from the hotel to the actual event itself. But what Andy and the Toronto Midtown folks have done there is said, here's the 2-tier pricing. If you need transportation, this is the price. If you don't need transportation, this is what you have as well. But we have some of the VIPs golfing, Andy Gray and Gordon Smith and Mark Haitley are golfing. I'm fairly sure Gordon Smith is golfing. If he's not, I'll be surprised. And so if you go to the golf, you get a chance. You might even end up sitting next to them having lunch, or passing them on the tees. And these guys, the banter these guys have, just incredible. And the football, we have Mark Cately is going to be coaching one of the two teams, and Andy Gray is going to be coaching the other of the two teams as well. So I tell you, these guys take it seriously. Like, you know, Mark coached one of the teams, and we hosted the convention in 2018 as well here in Calgary, and he coached the Calgary team against the rest of the world. And Calgary won, by the way, and coaching the team was taking it kind of seriously. And Andy, he coached one of the teams in Vegas, Andy Gray, last year, and these guys, they want to win. You know, these guys are winners. So yeah, that's the events. We also, the last event we have that's a wee bit of a kind of partnership between ourselves and Toronto Midtown, is what we call the Leaving Do, and the Leaving Do is on Sunday this year. And the Las Vegas guy, the Leaving Do is always brilliant. The purpose of the premise behind the Leaving Do is, if you're flying out that day, go have a couple of drinks with your new friends and your existing friends, and then go jump on the plane and just get sign off. It's kind of turned into such an event that a lot of people stick around for the whole day and then fly back or travel back on the Monday. So this year's Leaving Do, it's going to actually be at the hotel. Typically, we like to go to the host club. Or the Toronto Midtown are actually in between venues right now. Unfortunately, the previous venue had closed down, so we don't have that luxury. But we've got this beautiful outdoor patio at the hotel with lovely gardens and stuff like that. So, you know, God willing, the weather complies and we get a chance to get out there, and we'll have the DJ there, and we'll have a whole bunch of banter. I'm sure there'll be some people in the pond at some point between the start of the day and the day as well. But there's lots and lots going on.
It's true. I always look forward to the Leaving Do, because I feel like NARSA like flashes before your eyes. You're there on the first day, and before you know it, it's finished, and you're like, oh no, like now what am I going to do? But then you remember, okay, we got the leaving party to go to. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do NARSA for a week. You guys do such a great job, and everybody always looks forward to it. You make new friends. I remember I was in Las Vegas one year, and I was just walking through like the the Planet Hollywood Mall kind of area, and there's this big bar in the middle. I'm walking through by myself with my Rangers shirt on, and there's a group of Rangers fans in the bar, and they wave at me and wave me to come over. I introduced myself to them. We start talking, and before we know it, we're friends, and we're actually still friends till today. Yeah. And it's that little Rangers connection that you can make through coming to events like this, that you will have lifelong friends, and it makes you want to come back. No matter where it is every year, it makes you want to come back, because you're like, oh, my friends are going to be there. I'm going to make new friends. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
So it's always super appreciative.
I think, thinking about that football match, Gary, I think if Mark Hateley's on your team, I think you should try and persuade him to be a player coach. I bet he can still, I bet he's still quite good even at his age.
He said, do you know what he says? I think is it his knees or his hips? I think his knees. He says, I can't anymore because of my knees. He did come on and take a penalty. We kind of pretended that the game went to penalties in Calgary just for the fun of it at the end. And he came on. I think he might have missed it. Gordon Smith came on and absolutely put one in the top corner from a penalty perspective. But yeah, these guys, I think they're probably intimidated by me just because I'm such a physical specimen that they can't.
A gladiator.
Yeah.
Yeah. But make sure you get Victoria in goal.
Yeah.
Not a chance. I'll have my nails done, Gary. I'll support my.
So, thinking about the nights at NARSA, Gary, the first night Victoria tells me is the welcome night. So what actually happens there? What apart from obviously welcome, what tell us a bit about the welcome night.
Yeah, the welcome night is kind of just the theory behind it is we ease into the week. It's a Thursday night and it's quite chill. We have the DJ there who'll put on a bunch of kind of floor fillers and stuff. There's a dance floor and things like that there. But it's basically easing in. We'll have a VIP Q&A. Depending on how many VIPs we do, we would maybe kind of half them and do a certain amount of VIP Q&As one night, a certain amount the other night, just to kind of mix things up a wee bit. But it's quite low key. the first night. Everyone is most people, if I could say, probably a higher percentage of people have arrived that day, so they're just a bit of buzz to kind of get going. So we just have that kind of ease into the night. Nothing too crazy goes on, because the golf is on the Friday, and we used to, we used to have the football and the golf on the Friday, but the football has now changed just to give people an opportunity to do both. And it's people are leaving early for the golf, so it's not too wild on the Thursday night.
I've heard about some people quite enjoying themselves on that night and maybe only getting 3 hours of sleep. I don't know if you've heard about this, but I know it definitely does happen. Yeah. Obviously, the next night is then going to be the blue night.
Yep.
Now, are people expected to wear blue to the blue night that's about to go on? And what kind of happens on that night?
So we call it the Tam Plunkett Blue Night, named after Tam Plunkett, who I mentioned earlier was one of the founding fathers of NARSA. And is it mandatory to wear blue? No. Years ago, we went to Vegas. I think it was it 2010, something like that. We went with the convention in Vegas, and I had a grey T-shirt on, grey, and I went to the blue night with my grey T-shirt on, but the lights made it look kind of green. And even now, 13 years later, I still get grief about that. And it was independently verified as a grey T-shirt, but I get a hassle for that. So it's blue all the way for me now. But the main thing that separates the Thursday night to the Friday night is that we do typically have a flute band there. A flute band, either from back home, sometimes from North American shores as well. And this year we have the Pride of the Rock flute band from Dumbarton back home as well. And Andy Burnett has a bit of a connection with the band from when he was living back home as well. So that's the big thing. So the flute band will come on, do a couple of sets. And again, if we have the capacity to be able to do a bit of a Q&A with some of the folks as well, we'll do that. Each night we've got some raffles and things where we can give away some or auction off some kind of priceless Rangers memorabilia as well. But yeah, the big thing is a lot of people just want to come for the Friday night, and we typically feel that a lot, and especially in the Greater Toronto area as well. It's some people would call it a sash bash, but we call it the blue night.
100%. I know that is what I call it sometimes, but definitely it's always the blue night. And I personally think shows wear your Rangers shirt to that night.
Yeah. I think a lot of people because they want to identify when they arrive, they kind of almost blow their whole wardrobe in the first couple of days because they're so proud to be there. So then come the Friday night, you're looking and you're like, that doesn't look even anything remotely like Rangers stuff there. But it's because everything
is so true.
Beer and sweat and all sorts of stuff like that.
That's so true. I know, like, when I'm going to go to the airport to pick up some of our friends, and I'm thinking, like, oh, maybe I'll wear my Rangers shirt to the airport. So it is like off the get-go, you'll see people walking out of Toronto Airport wearing their shirts, and they'll bring 5-6 different kinds of shirts with them and change it throughout the day. And it becomes a thing. It becomes like your identity is.
Absolutely.
Like I said before, if you don't know somebody, but you see them wearing a Rangers shirt, that's an automatic connection, and you're going to get along well with them, and they will become your friend. Even if you are traveling, let's say, to NARSA by yourself, you'll never be alone, because you'll always have people there that will accept you into their group. But you'll sit with people at the Grand Banquet, which I know Owen is going to be asking about next.
Yeah, so Victoria's touched on that. So the last night is the Grand Banquet. I love the name, the Walter Smith Memorial Grand Banquet. So what can people who attend expect from the Walter Smith, which is a brilliant name, Memorial Grand Banquet?
Yeah, we were very fortunate that Walter's family agreed to allow us to change the name last year to the Walter Smith Memorial, and I'm very, very happy that we have that in place now, because that's a constant memorial for him. The Grand Banquet essentially is a suited and booted, dinner dress, cocktail dress, ball gown, whatever it is folks want to wear, and it's a sit down meal. And so we have a cocktail reception before it, just to get people kind of organised. The seats are assigned, and then we sit down. There's a wee bit of pomp to it that makes me feel a wee bit uncomfortable, especially when we don't have a trophy to carry in, where we get a bagpipe and we walk in with the bagpipes, and then we sit down and we say grace, and then we have a lovely meal and then we have a couple of shorter speeches. Back in the day, I was unfairly criticised for having my speeches be too long. But we get if we have anyone from the club there, we'll get a wee bit of an overview from the club, just in terms of the importance of the bond between Rangers and NARSA and things like that. We'll maybe have the odd auction of some of the bits and pieces that have maybe been donated by the club themselves, and then as a live band that we have that will provide live music, and sometimes there's a DJ interlude, but for the most part it's the live band doing their thing as well. So like a good solid classy high quality end to the formality part of the NARSA convention, and then we just ease into the leaving do on the Sunday, as I'd mentioned.
That's so great. So obviously the host hotel this year is the Sheraton, I believe, which is really exciting. Are there still rooms available to purchase if someone is looking to come to NARSA? And are there still tickets available to purchase? Because I've seen a couple of people in the chat there saying, I'm laughing at my dad there, basically saying that they're interested in coming to NARSA and they don't have tickets. And 100% Dad, yes, Gary likes to talk. We all know it, but it's because you have so many great stories and we want to hear them.
Spread the word of Rangers, that's all it is. So in terms of the hotel, to all intents and purposes, the hotel is pretty much sold out now. We're going to keep a very, very small, I haven't actually signed that. I'll probably get the addendum to the contract back tomorrow, and then I'll sign it tomorrow. But if you're looking to book the hotel, like literally, you would probably have to do it today or tomorrow. And then you'll get the rate. And the reason the rate's important is that we have it for, I can't even remember the exact price now, but $255, something like that per night. But the typical rate for that hotel right now is about between $500 and $600 a night as well. So the NARSA rate that we've got is incredible. I know it's a lot of money for one night in a hotel room, but in relative terms, it's not. It's, for a tier 1 city to be right absolutely in the heart of that. So if you haven't booked a hotel and you were planning on doing it at some point between now and the convention, chances are you'll be out of luck on that. In terms of tickets, there are still tickets available. We've now got 3 nights. It's typically we put out 3 night packages, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as one entire package. We see how those go, and then we start to think about breaking them out a wee bit, to provide people with a wee bit more flexibility and some cost certainty as well. So in terms of where we're at in the fuller event, we've probably about 30 tickets left, 3 packs of tickets left, and then that's it. So I was hoping we would have an Old Firm one yesterday, and then people would be excited to see the Scottish Cup come over, and then we would maybe have an uptick, and then we'd have an opportunity to see it's going to be sold out. But we have those there as well. And just kind of hot off the press, we have been talking internally within the NARSA executive and with our membership on the WhatsApp group as well, to try and figure out the best way we can get individual night packages out there as well for people. As I mentioned earlier, some people just want to do the Friday only, or maybe the Thursday, Friday, and they're not so much interested in the Grand Banquet, or vice versa. They only want to come to the Walter Smith Memorial Grand Banquet and not do the rest of the stuff, and that's absolutely fine. What we're going to do is we're going to put 2 night tickets on sale Thursday, Friday, and actually kind of hot off the press, they're actually literally on the website right now. They got pushed to the website yesterday, a wee bit before my communication is ready to be sent out to the membership, so I'll get that communication out there a little bit later today. And that's $100. Our full package is $225 for the 3 nights, and for the Thursday, Friday only, it's $100 for the package. And the reason we can't do individual nights, because I know that's going to be a question, is the package, the ticket package that we use. You have to create an event for each night, essentially. So then you would be creating an event for Thursday night, you'd be creating an event for Friday night, you'd be creating an event for Saturday night, you'd be creating an event for Thursday and Friday combined, and then we have the 3 night event, which is already there. So already that's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, whatever the number is, events there, which in and of itself doesn't sound like a huge deal. But then when you're scanning, when we have the security folks scanning the tickets when you're walking in, they have to be on the right event, otherwise the ticket won't scan properly. So then we can't have 5 different security folks there saying 3 night packages here, 2 night packages here, individual night packages there. We just don't staff it like that, especially in a smaller convention. So a little bit of boring admin, but it's to make it as easy as possible for us right now in the sales process and the funnel there, and to make it as easy as we can for the security folks scanning people in. That's what we decided to do. So hopefully that's going to be palatable for the people that were waiting on those.
Yeah, no, of course. I think that's a great idea. It's always nice to have those ticket options, but I will give people an advance warning. If you do pick the 2-night ticket, you're going to miss out on a fantastic grand banquet night. I know I always really look forward to that. The meal that you guys put on, absolutely delicious. Everyone dresses up. It's really great. And I feel like if people bought the 2-ticket package, they'd be like, oh, well, I could have just spent that little bit extra, enjoyed another day of NARSA.
Yeah. It's not for everyone, but I'm the same as you, Victoria. I love just something just a wee bit different, you know. But I appreciate that some people don't. It doesn't feel like a holiday if they have to bring a suit or a dress, or, whatever it's going to be. Yeah. So either or is great.
Yeah, exactly.
In the live chat, just a side question away from, I know Gary was talking about Graham Souness earlier, and that question from Laura says, would Gary welcome Graham Souness back to Rangers in some role now he's left Sky, and could he see it happening?
Would I welcome him back? Absolutely, yes. I know some talk yesterday was maybe director of football and kind of, Ross Wilson's gone, so maybe we could have Graham in there. I think sometimes, kind of back to what I was saying about the NARSA executive, you need to understand what the role is. If you have a skill set in the role, then all the better. If he was coming back as an ambassador, as an advisor, as something like that, it would depend what he wants, and it would depend on what the club needs at a given point in time. But all day, every single day of the year, 100% yes to welcome him back. I actually almost messaged him yesterday to say, interesting development, have you got anything in the pipeline? But it's Graham Souness and we're not friends like that. So I was like, maybe just for a wee while. But 100%, absolutely. I would love him to come back, Laura. Definitely.
Good.
So you're saying about, obviously, you've spoken about all those packages, the different things going on. So if people, in the live chat, or people picking up this podcast at a later date, because obviously, there's different time zones are all over the United States. West Coast 8 hours behind, East Coast 5 hours behind, and Mountain Time, it's just all over the place. Where can people find out more information about the NARSA event this year, Gary?
NARSA.ca, and thank you for putting it up on the ticker there as well. If you go to NARSA.ca, everything that you need about the event, the mechanics of the event, the costs of the event, the structure of the event is absolutely there. If anybody wants to get in contact with me directly, you can contact me at Rangers SCC, that's 2 S's and 2 C's, at hotmail.com. And I'd be happy to chat. Sometimes I miss the odd email here and there, but if that's the case, just email me again, and I would be happy to chat with folks as well. And through our social media as well, of course, you can see you've got the official NARSA Twitter handle. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook as well. You can contact us through any of those media as well.
Perfect. That's great. I can see another question just in the live chat there. If Owen wants to bring it up, it's from Frog in My Throat. It's from Willie Smith, I see. He's asking, will there be Friday and Saturday night ticket only packages available anytime soon? Some of our members can attend the Thursday. I know you spoke about the 2-night package that you were doing Thursday and Friday. And then there's the 3-night package obviously available. And you mentioned the ticketing issue about having to switch to things, and that's totally understandable. So let's give Willie a little answer here.
Yeah, for sure. If this is Willie from Niagara, thanks for the question, Willie. Good to hear from you. If it's another Willie Smith, it's still great to hear from you anyway. But we haven't done the Friday, Saturday only. I think probably, Willie, I'll maybe give you a call and see how many people we're talking about here, and see if that's something that we can work out, because as I mentioned earlier, we've got 30 3-night packages left. Essentially, we have space for 30 more people at the grand banquet. That's what we have. Going to be seating just over 303 people is how much space we have in the hall that we have for the Friday. So that dictates what we're doing there. So if there's a major groundswell, maybe we could just work out and create that separate event for the Niagara folks. If not, I'm not sure yet. We can't divest the technology too much because of the things I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm sure that answers his question. If it's the same one, I'm sure he'd appreciate your call a little bit later to see exactly who was interested in different things like that. So to wrap things up, I just want to thank Gary so much for taking the time to come on all the way from Calgary, Alberta. And I look forward to seeing you at the NARSA convention. Thank you for all the information. And like we said, if you look down below at the bottom of the screen here, you can see his email address if you have any questions. There's always the Twitter account. You can do the @ handle and ask any questions. And then also you have the website, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, has like a question and answer section where you can see formally asked questions that can
Um,
maybe help you out.
not so much actually. That's a good point. We typically don't have that, but there was a
I
frequently.
thought I'd seen it before, but
There's a
maybe I didn't.
maybe it was a different site. We do have a frequently asked questions area where you can get in touch with our NARSA secretary, Sandra Hawthorne, if you have any other subsequent questions that aren't answered there. But it's more around the kind of membership of NARSA, not so much the conventions.
Okay, perfect. And then just to clarify, you don't have to be a NARSA member to obviously attend a NARSA convention, correct?
Absolutely not. No, typically our attendance at the conventions is between it's kind of like a 50-50 split. So you still see some familiar faces from back home, I'm sure, but as you mentioned earlier, Victoria, you would get a chance to meet some new friends as well.
That's so great. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. I'm going to hand it over to Owen to sign off on us here. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in Toronto, Gary.
Yep.
Thank you again.
Thank yourself. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much to Gary for coming on. It's been fascinating for me to obviously learn about this, about NARSA and everything, because obviously I'm not in North America like Victoria, stuck here in the Midlands of England. So it's been fascinating to find out about about NARSA and everything that goes on at the convention as well. And I know that I've seen some of Victoria's fantastic pictures from the NARSA convention. It looks absolutely amazing, and I'm sure you'll all have a fantastic time there. I'm going to just ask one final question, Gary. If you had to say, who has been your favourite guest that you've ever had the chance to speak to at NARSA?
Oh, that's a great question. I hope none of the previous guests are watching this. Well, I hope they are for the success of the podcast. But in terms of the answer, it probably changes. I think, do you know what I'm going to say actually? And this is by no means my favourite player, but I would say Marvin Andrews in Windsor in 2019. And the reason I say that is that this guy, the energy this guy brings to every room is just incredible. But he was leaving on the Sunday, and his Uber was outside, and I'm in the Uber. The Ubers will just disappear if you don't. And I'm like, Marvin, you need to go. He was still singing Three Little Birds, entertaining everyone. They're leaving, and then he's leaving, and people are trying to get selfies and stuff like that. And he kind of fought through the whole crowd. And then at the very end, my dad was sitting in the corner. So the door was kind of on the right and my dad was sitting on the left. And he made a point of going right over to my dad and saying, "It's a pleasure meeting you, Ronnie. Thanks very much. We'll see you again," and gave him a big hug. And then went outside, and then I got him into his Uber, and off he went. And my dad was just beaming at that. And it was such a human connection that he created. It's something that I'll never forget. So that would be my best experience with a guest. So I kind of half answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds fantastic. Absolutely superb. Yeah. And I know Victoria is very much looking forward to it from what she's been telling me. Thank you everyone in the live chat for coming on and all the questions and all the contributions. Great to have some new people in the live chat as well from North America. Great to hear from you. Been absolutely fantastic. Obviously, we're coming towards the end of the season, guys, but please keep coming back to Glasgow Rangers Nation. We obviously provide you with daily videos, podcasts, everything, obviously talking about the most successful team in football, still the most successful team in football. Don't let that other lot forget that. And also the greatest team in football as well. Thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you all. It's been fantastic. I will be back to speak to you as soon as possible on the channel, as will Victoria. Gary, good night, and thank you very much again.
Thanks again.